Parktown Residences, the largest integrated development in Singapore, located within the largest HDB estate. Developed and run by the Avengers equivalent of developers with a low land cost to boot. Seems like pretty much a no-brainer, isn't it? But what's the catch?
Hi, if you're new to the channel, I'm Alvin and I'm a real estate buff who's obsessed with all things real estate, especially data and human psychology. I've been fortunate enough to marry that passion with my work as a realtor, allowing me to achieve my dream of owning a landed property and a conservation shop house by the age of 36, together with my wife Elizabeth. And hopefully by sharing our knowledge through this channel, someone out there can achieve their real estate dreams as well by making the right move.
My biggest concern will be that Parktown Residences will be setting PSF and quantum benchmarks not just in Tampines but potentially the entire OCR. Another concern would be the fact that Oriel and Tenet, ECs in very close proximity, may potentially cost less than 2/3 of the price. So the golden question is, how do you reconcile the good versus the bad? If you're a fan of data, you'll be in for a treat because we spent the last week consolidating all the data for all the condos within District 18 in hopes that we can utilize some of them to answer some of these questions. You ready? Let's go! Talking about data, our data suggests that 92% of viewers watching this video unsubscribe to the channel. So if you find this video useful and can appreciate the amount of work that we put into developing videos like that, please do hit that subscribe button as it will mean a lot to us. Thank you, and let's get right down into it. Integrated developments. They used to be a premium product due to their rarity, hence their ability to command a premium over other condominiums in the vicinity. But we have seen those numbers come up significantly over the years. We are seeing close to 20 integrated developments in total across the island, and we do expect those numbers to come up as the government open up more MRT stations and more townships. That said, not all integrated developments are created equal. Only about half of them have an air-conditioned bus interchange attached to it, with Parktown being the newest and biggest one of them all. The last one that was launched was Reserve Residences last year. We've done a video about that and it turned out to be one of our most popular videos. I'm going to put that link in the description and also somewhere in this video. And in that video, I termed such developments Integrated Developments Plus. But what's more interesting about that video was the observation I made with regards to the performance of such developments. So I ranked out all these developments and noticed that Bedok Residences was the worst performing one out of the lot. And with a little bit of digging, I noticed that it may potentially be due to the fact that it was charging a 25% premium in terms of PSF above other condominiums that TOP in the same period of time. On the other hand, if you look at slightly better performing integrated development plus, such as North Park Residences and Helion Residences, they were only charging a 15% premium. Now fast forward a year and we've been blessed with the TOP of two new integrated development plus, namely Sengkang Grand Residences and Woodley Residences, allowing us to borrow their data point to double check if the observation we made last year still stays true. Let's take a look. So we have added Sengkang Grand Residences and the Woodley Residences into our table of all the integrated development plus, right? We don't have sufficient data for Pasir Ris 8 as yet, and I'm not going to utilize that in our evaluation due to a lack of transactions, right? But Sengkang Grand and Woodley Residence have sufficient numbers. We're going to utilize that. If you rank this out in terms of percentage annualized gains, you notice that the Woodley Residences comes very close to Bedok Residences, ranking them at the bottom of the table. More jarringly, Sengkang Grand Residences TOPing at the same time performed quite a fair bit better. We are talking about almost 1% better. So now the important question here is that what was that premium that Woodley Residences commanded over condos in that same period of time that caused this performance. So for this little piece of research, we have again been blessed with having quite good data points, right? Number one being the fact that we have quite a number of condos TOPing within 2 years of one another. Not just that, they are also located very close to one another, being between District 19 and District 13, right? We have Riverfront Residences, Affinity, Florence, Sengkang Grand in 19, Trevor, Park Colonial, and Woodley Residences in District 13. Okay, and for this particular piece of research, I've only taken data points between January 2018 to December 2022 because I was trying to find the kind of prices buyers were paying direct from developers in the primary market. And for that, right, we have the average PSF of all these condos transacted coming in at 1,642, right? And in this column, you're going to notice the difference between the average PSF in that condo and the average PSF across all. Okay, and we wanted to look at the data points between Sengkang Grand and Woodley Residences. So Woodley Residences coming in at 21%. If you recall, Bedok Residences was 25%. So that kind of justifies or proves the previous observation that we made 1 year back to still be on point, right? Basically, if you come in above 15%, you will potentially underperform the other developments, right? Sengkang Grand being ranked quite well in terms of our list was only a 5% premium over the average, right? That kind of explains its better performance, okay? Another interesting observation, since this was already pulled up, right? Riverfront did the best, okay, with 5% annualized average annualized percentage gains, right? Because its gap to the average was the highest. But okay, the second best was Affinity if you're looking at percentage difference in terms of the PSF to the rest, but somehow or other that ended up performing the worst. So what does that tell us? You cannot simply utilize PSF entry as a gauge for future performance moving forward, right? It can be one of them, and also it probably is one of the better ones if you are investing in integrated developments, right? But perhaps not so much if you are investing in just normal condominiums. Now, the important question will be, how do we utilize that information in our analysis for Parktown? Now, the tricky thing here is that Parktown doesn't have the luxury of having such similar comparisons that Woodley and Sengkang Grand Residences had. The closest I can think of is perhaps Lentor and Norwood over in Woodlands. Some of you may say, how about EOK and Chuan Park? I'm not a fan of using those data points because they are located closer to the RCR or even within the RCR, where Parktown is located in as OCR a location as you can get. Okay, so let's dive into looking at Lentor Mansion as a comparison. Lentor Mansion's average PSF stands at 2,271. You add 15% on top of that, lands us at close to 2,600 PSF. Norwood's average is at 2,080 PSF. You add 15% premium on top of that, lands us at about 2,400 PSF. So if you can get Parktown at anywhere in between that, I think it's gonna be a pretty good deal. Next up, I'm going to share with you guys my thoughts on the project specifics, namely the site plan and the floor plans. I'm not going to go into them into super deep detail, else this video is going to take 2.5 hours long. But if you do need them, I can send you the project brochure. All you need to do is drop us a text or click in the link down in the description. Let's get started first with the site plan. So I'm going to start off first with some of the things I like, follow on with some of the things I perhaps don't quite like about the site plan. First thing I like, which came to my attention immediately, was that they have actually separated the two entrances, vehicular entrances of the residences and the commercial onto separate roads. Okay, so I think they have gotten the feedback. For those of you who follow the news, Woodley Residences, they came into the news quite a fair bit because of the traffic issues, right? I believe a lot the residential and the commercial both came in from the same road, and that created a lot of congestion, long wait times to get into and out of the car park, right? So it's good over here. We have plenty of roads around the development, right? And that allowed for a couple of different egresses on separate sites, right? So residences, you come in from one side, and then commercial, you come in from another side. That will reduce a lot of those potential traffic issues. Now, that's the first thing I like. The second thing I like, which you can't exactly see from the site plan, is that every lift lobby, right, from the residences, so let's say you stay in this block, right, you can access to the basement, which is where the car park is, and also to the commercial podium. Okay, as straightforward as that sounds, right, it's not always the case for integrated and mixed-use developments like that. I give you an example for Sengkang Grand. You can't access the commercial units from every single lift lobby, right? You have to go into a common lift lobby and from there access. I believe the whole idea for that was more for security issues, right? But honestly, if somebody's gonna tailgate you, they're gonna tailgate you all the way up if they really do want to lah. Which, I mean, you can flip on another side to say that, oh, you know, having access to commercial on each and every single lobby may create some security issues. But come on, I mean, we are in Singapore. How bad can that be? To me, I see that still as a plus, right? Because you go and stay in the integrated development, the whole point of it is for that super convenience, right? Just take the lift down, can go commercial. You don't want to really, I mean, I'm a lazy person, you don't want to still have to take the lift down and change lift lobby to go down some more. So those are some of the things I like. Now let's talk about some of the things I don't quite like, okay? First and foremost, first impressions of the site plan, they look a little bit odd in terms of the shape, right? I think it's mainly due to this central boulevard coming in that was supposed to link sort of the Sungai Api-Api together with this other park below. I can't remember. I believe it's called the Tampines Eco Park, right? Forming this little green corridor that links to Sun Plaza, and in a way, if you can take that walk down that park, you can hit all the way to the Tampines Central. Yeah, the whole idea is great, right? But I would have very much preferred that things look a little bit neater lah. But then again, with most integrated developments, the plot is usually odd, you know, so you're never really gonna get a perfectly shaped plot. So they all always seem to be a little bit messy. I mean, Sengkang Grand Residences again, right? The blocks were all tilted at a little bit of an angle. That's the first thing, okay? But not a deal breaker, right? Kind of like just being a little picky there, okay? But the more apparent thing you will notice, right, which was the first thing that jumped out when most of us agents saw it, was that close block-to-block distance, primarily in Park West side, okay? So you look at the block-to-block distance over here can be quite tight. We are talking about, I believe it's about 25 to 30 meters at most, okay? Within these blocks also, the block-to-block is quite tight. Park East, if you are looking in the unit in the center, I think it's not so bad, especially these blocks, which obviously is going to demand a premium, okay? These blocks to these blocks, I think as long as they're perpendicular, they're not so bad lah. But so primary concern would be perhaps like these blocks lah, more for the Park West guys, and also for the units facing down into the central boulevard. But on that note, is it going to be a deal breaker? Perhaps I can give you a perspective, right? If this is going to be in an area where most of the units have great block-to-block distances, that would have been a concern. But if you look at Tampines and also Pasir Ris, for example, and I'm going to show you Pasir Ris 8. Pasir Ris 8 is going to have actually even worse block-to-block distances, right? Because of how the development has been orientated with an above-ground MRT, all the blocks were orientated this way, and also to catch the north-south orientation. They have very, very close block-to-block distances, right? I did one of my first few reviews was for Pasir Ris 8, and that was one of the main things that I didn't quite like, okay? You go to another big development in Tampines, well, one that you can't really miss is Treasure at Tampines. And of course, Treasure at Tampines, people's main concerns is also the block-to-block distances. But if you actually do see the data points, okay, maybe I show you one more before I talk about that. Coco Palms, one of the other best, other very well-performing developments over in Pasir Ris, they also have close block-to-block distances. Now, if you look at the data points for Pasir Ris 8, Treasure at Tampines, and also Coco Palms, they all still did pretty well in the resale market. So what does that tell me? These close block-to-block distances. Of course, if you're buying it for own sale, it's not something you like, then that one can't be helped, right? But if you are looking for on an investment basis, will that severely impact the potential profitability of that area? Number one, I don't think so, because in and around that vicinity, a lot of the condos also have this issue of close block-to-block distances, and they have still proved to be relatively profitable. And some of the other concerns include the ventilation. Okay, so for those of you who are perhaps new to integrated development, and especially if you're looking for it for an own stay, right, you have to pay attention to the ventilation shafts, right, especially the exhaust shafts for the F&B. Okay, so we're gonna have I believe the hawker center below block 1 and 3, and the ventilation or the exhaust will be out this way. Yeah, so if you are looking at some of these stacks over here, do be aware that I don't think you're gonna run away from it. Definitely will have some of those smells. The tricky thing here is that the developers have not yet briefed us on where the commercial F&B, where their exhaust will be distributed. Okay, and actually, if you notice, because of the sheer number of units, close to 1,200 of them, right, and the developer wanting to put in good facilities and meaningful facilities, they have pushed the units pretty much to the corner of the plot. So the ventilation shafts, if you look at the site plan, or if you look at the model, right, it's distributed all throughout, right, and the lack of that buffer between the units and the site would literally mean if you have a F&B exhaust over here, you definitely will smell a little bit of it. There's no running away from that, right? So if this is a concern for you, then my suggestion would be to not pick some of these units that is facing the outside. And on to my last comment about the site plan is the fact that one side seems to be like the much lousier brother as compared to the other side, right? Because you see the way this little boulevard over here has cut the thing. Over on this side, the pool is so much smaller than this side. Okay, do I think in the future, right, people will say, oh, I only want to buy units on Park West, as opposed to they say Park East, because it's nice and open, versus Park West? I don't really have a good case study, at least on top of my head, to give you reference to that. But for example, if we go to somewhere like Treasure at Tampines, you do get people saying they don't want one particular facing, but you don't really hear people telling me like, oh, I don't want this, I don't want this part, I prefer to go this part and whatnot, right? Because here the block-to-block distance is a bit further, this block-to-block distance is a bit lesser, or the facilities over here have more or have less, right? Treasure, they pretty much split it up quite evenly throughout. So again, right, it's perhaps not the most apple-to-apple comparison, but of course, given a pick, right, let's say you want to err on the side of caution, then I do recommend picking Park East more, just because number one, the block-to-block distance is more, the general facilities, it looks better on that side, right? And on first glimpse, of course, if you look at how they have numbered the facilities, it looks quite nice. Right? It's good that we have 4 different function rooms, a lot of other smaller lounges and function rooms like that, right? The fact that half of the development is 2-bedders and smaller, which may potentially bring in a lot more people than a development with more 4-bedders, 3, 4, 5-bedders, for example, right? I don't know if the facilities will be sufficient, to be very honest. I think it's quite borderline. I don't think it's too little. Okay, they could have done more, but I don't know how much more. Of course, if they have done away with this boulevard, but I think it was necessary to make this open air. Yeah, had this not been here, then they could have put in a lot more facilities, right? But I think with this being gone, they did the best that they could, right? It's good that got good, got bad, right? That they push all the units to basically the extreme periphery of the development to try to still put facilities all within the center, versus sometimes some condos, right, they push there's a setback between the boundary, and then they have some lame facilities at the corner, right? At least this one don't, right? They just dump everything in the middle. So on the facilities point of view, I'm pretty down the middle. I think it's sufficient. Would have been happy to have more, yes, right? Is it too little? No, right? Just about enough. Next up, floor plans. Let's go. So 1 plus study, all 1 plus studies are the same, nothing spectacular to talk about, okay? The 2-bed, 1 bath, again, pretty standard, nothing much to talk about. Next, 2-bedroom premium is where things start to get interesting, okay? Very good layout, I must say, I like it. Once you step in, tucked away kitchen, and this little corner over here to give you a lot of flexibility, at least is a standalone dining area. Alternatively, you put your dining area on the outside, create a storage over here. This is a pretty, okay, so take note, GFA harmonized, okay? So this is a pretty spacious, pretty decently sized 2-bed, 2-bath and whatnot, right? Again, you're not going to expect natural ventilation, okay? But good thing over here, there is a potential to create 2 ensuite toilets, right? The master is obviously ensuite, and then this toilet, we have a Jack and Jill door over here. The 2 plus study is one of my favorite layouts over here. I like the layout, but don't quite like one other point, right? I'm going to talk about that in a bit. If you follow the channel, you know how much I like the 2 plus study layout in Pine Tree Hill and also on Nava Grove, right? Pine Tree Hill being the most previous immediate UOL project, okay? And how much I like that layout. And I think they kind of outdid themselves over here, okay? So step in, this kitchen, I think more or less just took out from Pine Tree Hill one, right? But if you actually go down to the show flat, I like the layout of this kitchen a little bit better. Finishing wise, maybe cannot match up, but I think they gave a little bit of a extra storage rack below, some exposed storage rack below the normal cupboard. Look pretty nice. You get what I mean when you go and see the show flat, right? Things, I believe the backsplash all were done pretty nicely. Good stuff, right? Good stuff for OCR. No complaints about that. Now, as you step in over here, this study, very, very good, right? You can potentially extend this study out to create an entire room on its own, even if you want to create down this way to be a little bit more crazy. You see, if you create down this way, right, you can create a cupboard over here, and then you have this almost like a full room over here, right? Wall to wall distance, pretty standard. Other than that, nothing much to shout about. But one of my favorite layouts for 2 plus study, very, very good size. Very, very good size overall. Not so sure about the sizing in the OCR and the net entry quantum. Another thing I'm not sure about is the sheer number of 2 plus studies coming in. So I would be honest to say, good layout, but based on the sheer numbers, if you want to buy for own stay, great, right? But if you want to buy for a flip, you probably got to be aware of this and be prepared to be in it for a slightly longer period of time, okay? 3 compact, not a big fan. Okay, let me explain why, okay? First of all, I feel the kitchen is maybe a little bit too big, okay, for a 3 compact. Nowadays, you don't hear people complaining kitchen. Last time when I first entered the industry, I talk about this quite a fair bit, right? 9 years back, people always complain the kitchen is too small. But nowadays, as people get used to smaller kitchens, people don't cook as much. People actually complain kitchen too big. And especially if you are looking at 926 square feet, I thought this kitchen could have been a bit smaller, or in exchange, you put in a store, something like the Ori 3 compact, right? First sort of little gripe over there. The dining very small. I think it's a bit pushing it to put a 6-seater over here. Okay, well, good thing is that it's a dumbbell layout. Some people like it, some people don't. Dumbbell layout over here to save walkway space. Over here, nice long walls on this side, so you can put long sofas. Pretty standard wall to wall distance. Okay, I would say it's decent, efficient. Only thing is kitchen could have been a little bit smaller, dining maybe a bit bigger, but very little wasted space lah. Right, I have to give them that. Very little wasted space in corridor, very little wasted space in terms of the entrance. Right, you won't be able to get natural ventilation over here, which you would for Alta. Hopefully I have enough time to do that, right? So a lot of investors are comparing Parktown versus Alta. Alta, I believe, have a much better tree compact layout as compared to Parktown. I'll be very honest about that. Okay, so if you like natural ventilation for kitchen and toilet, you probably got to check out the Alta one. Okay, just in case that video doesn't come out in time, if anyone of you is keen with Alta, you can drop me a text as well. Our exit strategy scores are out for that. Okay, 3 premium is good. Okay, I think this kitchen size, I noticed this kitchen size is almost the same as this kitchen size. Maybe this one just a little bit bigger over here, right? I think this kitchen just nice for a 1066 square feet. Okay, but the dining is a bit small for 1066 square feet for a 3 premium. Again, right, I think the layouts over here, one of the downsides is the dining area, but then again, with more people electing to put their dining table in the balcony, I think that shouldn't be a deal breaker for most people. Okay, you're gonna get a household shelter over here, but with that, you do expect quite a long corridor, but not to worry, because we don't double that up with a long entrance walkway lah. I think a lot of you will be happy that this is very efficient. Come right in over here. The fridge, I believe they may potentially give you a slightly bigger fridge, which is a nice touch. They don't have this layout in the show flat, but I believe they had the 3 premium plus study at the show flat, if I'm not wrong, and they gave I believe they gave a double door fridge, which is quite rare, especially for 3 bedders, and this size look almost the same as this size, so I do think this may be a double door fridge, right? I'm not sure. Designated washer dryer area over here, right? So plenty of countertop space. But if you ask me, I would have rather this be glass. Okay, this isn't glass obviously because the fridge is over here. Had this been glass, at least once you step here, you allow the space to look a little bit bigger. Yeah, they chose to put the fridge here as well. Not sure lah, maybe because this is structural. Okay, other than that, bedroom sizes are very good. Over at Parktown, sorry, mentioned it a bit late. I think 9.1, 9.2, right? Compared to the other launches in and around what we are seeing on the market right now, these are very, very good bedroom sizes. Quite important for the OCR especially, okay? Because of most upgraders are coming in from HDBs. They have rooms too small, some of them may have issues, okay? Master bedroom size is also very, very comfortable, right? So 1066, very efficient. Only wasted space I would complain about perhaps is the corridor area and a slightly smaller dining area, okay? Now, 3 premium bus study, you're going to be able to see this at this show flat, okay? Here we have a dog leg here, okay? So this one, little bit more wasted space than the 1066. Kitchen is about the same size, okay, which is great. Again, household shelter, everything is more or less the same except for an additional study over here. Okay, so now if you're asking me, right, the difference in size between the 1066 and the 1163, right, about 100 square feet, let's take 2,500 PSF for example, there's going to be $250,000 difference. Do you really need that $250,000 study room? Some people may say they want, at least it's a more economical option than buying a 4-bedder, right? If you really do need to work from home, okay? Else, if you are the kind that like to enjoy yourself and want to have a walk-in wardrobe, for example, for your master bedroom, this in the show flat, they have actually kind of linked it together to make it a larger master bedroom. Great, okay? Gonna set you back $250,000 more, okay? Other than that, no real big complaints over here. I mean, the same ones would be the slightly smaller dining area lah, okay? The 4-bedder 1335 square feet, okay? Over here, now see, this one finally they give you this glass surface over here, right? So I do like this very much. I think the wall-to-wall distance is very, very good. Now this is a proper dining area, right? You see what I mean? Kitchen, not too big. right? Actually, they give the kitchen about the same size as the 10, the 3-bedders. So actually, I feel the 1335 square feet kitchen is the best fit for its size, not too big, okay? Nowadays, right, people don't want too big kitchen already, okay? We have bedrooms over here. The master bedroom I like, okay? Because you have a lot more wall space over here. If you really want, you can create one more wardrobe over here, have sort of a equal shape wardrobe, right? A lot more flexibility given for you, right, as opposed to a more traditional master bedroom like that, okay? So I do like this very much, okay? Then we have this particular bedroom over here that has a Jack and Jill in, and then these 2 bedrooms also sharing this toilet. So could have done with maybe one more toilet, especially at 1335 square feet. But you know what? They decided to give the size to the living room, right? Which I think it's important, especially once you hit quantums like that, okay? So very, very efficient. I do like this layout quite a fair bit. The 4 premium I like based off the kitchen, right? This kitchen, they kind of UOL, right? Kind of borrowed it little bit same but different, right, from the ones that I really like over at Pine Tree, okay, where you get to open up fully like that. Okay, the Pine Tree one looks grander, right? This one is half of that lah. A good thing is, if you want, I believe you can hack this one to create a very nice big open space and then create a slightly smaller kitchen like that, which is maybe something that I would do, okay? The entrance walkway, if you notice over at Parktown, all are those that have, right, they are not overly long, so not too bad, right, because we have many blocks, okay? As you come in over here, pretty much everything else is the same. The master bedroom, I would have preferred the 1335 square feet master bedroom like that, right? But instead, this one here have a more traditional bathroom already lah. You do get that extra bathroom over here, right? So not 3 share 1, right, but 2 share, 2 bedroom share 1, and then we have an ensuite here and an ensuite here. So 1 extra bed toilet over here lah, right? Whether or not it's worth that extra price, okay? It's almost 160 square feet more, so that would likely set you back at 300 plus K more, right? Is that necessary for that? I don't know, right? If not, then just buy the 1335. It's a very good layout on its own, okay? And then lastly, the 5-bedder. Number one good thing, don't have private lift, okay? But if you really were to ask me, if I were the developers, or what I would have hoped for was from the developers would be to make that gamble to see whether or not a privately 5-bedder in the OCR really can work or not, because we haven't really seen that in a lot of developments over in the OCR, okay? So I really would have been able to see that over here lah, right? And if you of course reference the 5-bedders over at the many different condos, they tend to be the best performing ones. So now let's take a look. This one come in very efficient space over here. The kitchen not too big, yeah. I mean, if you really want, you can potentially extend something over here. My wife did pick up that the dining may seem a little bit awkward in terms of position because of how they open up like that. I don't think so. I still quite like it. Now as we take a right turn over here, bedroom 1, 2, 3. These 3 bedrooms will share this toilet. The junior master will take this toilet, and the master bedroom is very spacious because we have a nice walk-in wardrobe like that. Problem really would be the single sink. I would have hoped to see a double sink for a 5-bedder. We don't see double sinks at all in this particular development. But you know, just small flaws here and there. What I do like in general over the layouts really is, I think they are very efficient. There's no real big wasted space in terms of entrance, walkways. The wall-to-wall distance is much better than the already large bedrooms. Kitchens, pretty well sized, right? I think not too big, not too small. Okay, yeah. And now let us dive into the data and research that we put together for Parktown Residences, and we're going to utilize our exit strategy framework for that. For the benefit of those of you who are joining us for the first time, you could check out this video where we dive into detail how to utilize the framework and why and how we developed it. Now, to save you the time, allow me to give you a quick summary. Why did we create this framework? It's because exit strategy is this big buzzword that's been thrown around a whole lot recently, but the answers that I hear just didn't sound like they were giving consumers a whole lot of confidence and clarity. Now, with all that data available to us today, there has to be a better way, which leads me to how I created the framework. I utilized my close to 10 years of experience having worked with clients both in their purchase and also their sale, allowing me to see the data points that were truly important in the resale market. I've also been able to take this framework and back test it with the launches in 2018, and they seem to have worked pretty well. Now, that said, this is still a work in progress, and I'm very happy to hear whatever feedback you have so that we can make it better for the benefit of everyone. So you can drop that down into the comments, PM me, or if you want a copy of this framework, feel free to drop us a text as well. Happy to share it with you. And with that, let's take a look at the exit strategy framework for Parktown. Again, a quick summary for those of you who are joining us for the first time. For the first two rows, right, we have the price, quantum, and the size of the unit. The size of the unit, we already have it, but we don't have the price yet, right? So we're just going to put in arbitrary 2,500 PSF, right? So this can change, right, depending on the launch prices and whatnot. Next row, okay, we have the average profitability per annum. We use this particular data point to understand the demand of an area, right? And why do we do that? First of all, if an area has strong demand, very naturally the profits will go up. But you could think of it also on the flip side, right? If an area has not good demand, right? Demand that's not so good, right? Take for example, we always use the example of District 1, right? So District 1, there's a lot of listings on the market. Demand is just not so high. Very naturally, owners, right? All owners, when they put their units out onto the market, will try to fetch a high price, right? Right? Nobody just puts out their unit on the market expecting to make a little bit lesser, give you a discount for no apparent reason, right? Everybody likes to try for a high price, right? But if the demand is not there, their unit is on the market for a year, 2 years, for example, very naturally they will start bringing the price down to try to move the unit. And with that, right, when they adjust the price down, it eats into their profits, okay? So I realized and I came to understand that, you know, actually average profitability per annum is the best kind of data point as a proxy of demand. Okay, then next up, right, so this is demand. This data point is demand. Second data point is supply. A lot of people just utilize either the supply for sale or the supply of units built in that area. The pitfalls of both of them is that number one, if you just utilize the number of units built in that area, is not a good indication. Okay, I give you an excellent example. Okay, we have in and around the District 18, okay, 11,000 3-bedrooms built. But right now, if you try to go in and buy, there's only 341 units for sale. That's only a 2.9% of all units built that are currently on the market. Okay, if you just utilize the current units for sale without comparing it to the total supply of units built, then you are subjected to how big of an area you choose. Okay, if you choose a bigger area, then definitely the units there are a lot bigger, right? And coming to this, usually for my other exit strategy frameworks, if you watch the other videos, I tend to like to take perhaps at most within 2 km radius of a particular launch. That works fine for areas like EOK, Chuan Park, where, you know, in that vicinity there's sufficient condos. But I had that challenge for Parktown because it's somewhat in a new township. Okay, and so if I do 2 km, there really wasn't many condos, at least not enough to really give us good and meaningful data, right? And then if I choose to just take 5 km, that was also a little bit weird. So you know what? I just told my team, let's go in and just take all the District 18, right? And that's perfectly okay as well, right? Because some of you may say, that score, how you compare with the rest? This is why we use unit for sale versus current total supply versus current unit for sale, and you take that ratio out. So it really doesn't matter much, because at the end of the day, you compare the ratio. If you take a wider area, there's more units built, but what we are trying to see is out of all these units built, how many percent is currently for sale. So it really doesn't matter, right? So then we have this exit score, which is basically comparing the demand versus the supply, and for this score, the lower the better. Okay, and again, this score on its own, while our data have suggest hovering around the 100% is great, it works best. Okay, so but there's no real like passing grade and failing grade. Okay, at least not for now, not without a critical mass, a sufficient mass of data, right, which you're trying to build over the years. Okay, but based on the back test results, thereabouts 100 is good. If you cross 200, it's not so good, right? Between 100 to 200 is pretty fair. Okay, under 100 is great. Okay, but it works best, right, if you're comparing condos within one another, which we are doing it for you in this other sheet. Okay, especially, you know, comparing all the launches, the popular ones last year, EOK, Chuan Park, Nava Grove, Ori, Alta, Parktown, okay, all of them together, and then you can pick which one has the lowest score, telling you that it functions, it works better in terms of the exit score. Okay, then next up, right, very popular data point that everybody looks at is PSF. Okay, average surrounding PSF, median surrounding PSF, and highest surrounding PSF. Right, but just taking a look at PSF isn't good enough today, because people in the resale market, people are also purchasing it with quantums. Nobody really comes to me and tell me, hey Alvin, my budget for my own stay property is 1,900 PSF. Nobody does that, right? They come to me with you know, my budget is 2.1, 2.2 mil, thereabouts. Okay, but of course we are now also transitioning from a period of GFA harmonization to non-GFA harmonized to GFA harmonized projects, right? So these data points, it's not perfect, but it's the best that we can have at this point in time. Okay, now with that, let's take a look at some of the scores. I'm not going to go into them one by one. If not, again, this video is going to take 2 hours long, right? 1+ study, all the scores that you're going to get for 1+ study is probably not very good. So we have the exit score, right? That's the first main score. Second would be the gap score, right? The gap score kind of illustrates to you the gap between how much you're entering at with this arbitrary PSF, okay, and this arbitrary price versus your neighbors. Again, the lower the better. So for both of those scores, the lower the better. Okay, essentially, if you have 200%, means you're almost double on both quantum and PSF, double of that of the surrounding lah. That's what they are trying to tell you. Okay, 2-bed 1 bath. Okay, so you notice the exit score for 2-bed 1 bath, 2-bed 2 bath 2+ study will be the same, right? Because we don't have sufficient data to, or we don't have the sufficient manpower to go and speed up into each and every single one. But they will have different different gap scores, right? Because they have different sizes, and based on the different sizes, different quantums, we are able to compare that accordingly, right? So which is good enough for you, right? Because you are using this to determine whether you want to enter that project or not. What kind of unit types, you can utilize this to figure it out, right? Very natural, but very naturally, the smaller units will have a better score in this way, because again, right, due to the limited resources we have, we are just comparing it with surrounding quantums, and the surrounding quantums will look the same across the board. Okay, but the interesting thing here for Parktown is that their 2-bedders score is actually pretty good. You're gonna see it on the next sheet later on, right, where I compare it across the board. I'm pretty surprised for an area that has almost 6,000 2-bedders for sale to still have 95%, which means it's, despite the supply, it is still pretty profitable, right? And that's a great indication point for us. Okay, gap score again is gonna die. Right? As a matter of fact, gap score, we don't really have to look at. I mean, I'm just going to flash it to you right now, but I'm not going to go one by one down later, right? All of them, because we are looking at this in the OCR, the last launch in and around that area, we don't really have a lot of data coming in yet for Pasir Ris 8, so all that data point is going to be pushed very, very far off, right? And so it requires a deeper analysis to really understand how can we get across all of this, which is also why I shared a little bit earlier on in the video, how do you compare integrated developments during the same period of time versus other developments. Okay, So now let's just pay a bit more attention to the exit score, right? 3-bedders, like just now I mentioned, 11,000 3-bedders built in District 18. But then again, despite 300 for sale, they still average out to about a 5% percentage annualized returns. Very, very good. Hence giving us 56% gap score. This is very, very good. Later on, you will see again. Okay. Then next up, 4-bedders. Similarly, right, the gap score is 56%, also doing very, very well. Okay, so with that, again, right, if you want some of these data points, you want to see what's the average, median, and highest achieved quantums, do drop us a text. Happy to send this over to you. But what's more meaningful, I believe, for most of you, would be to compare whether or not how does Parktown weigh up against the other developments lah. Okay, so 1+ study, we have Parktown, EOK, and Alta, right? Out of all of them, actually, Parktown has the best 1+ study exit score. Alta's 1+ study exit score is pretty ridiculous. Okay, so if you want to buy a 1+ study, probably Alta has the best score out of them, right? Exit score, EOK still wins lah, right? I believe they have like what, 2 units left for 1+ study over at EOK. All right, 2-bedders, comparing Ori, Parktown, Alta, Chuan Park, EOK, and Nava Grove. You see the best score for exit score will be the Nava Grove 2-bedder, followed by Ori, followed by Chuan Park, and Parktown comes in pretty much in the middle. Yeah, still better than Alta and EOK in terms of the exit score lah, right? And if we look at the gap score, okay, gap score all the way, let me see, all the way from, again, from here to here, best gap score belongs to Nava Grove, followed by EOK, especially because these two are in areas with a lot of old supply. There is freehold a lot bigger, you know, have already set PSF benchmarks and quantum benchmarks for you. They also have launches that have came up a lot sooner, so there's some of the reasons why, right, the gap score is good, right? And that really just gives you a lot more confidence in terms of whether or not to enter the particular project or not, right? Second best gap score will be Alta. Third best score, gap score, Alta. And honestly, for this, Parktown's gap score will be the worst. And I'm kind of not surprised by this, considering the fact that it is all the way out in the OCR, right? So it's today's land price, but in that area, the most immediate recent ones, Pasir Ris 8, no sufficient data point to help us, right? Then we have Treasure at Tampines, which is also a lot cheaper. Okay, so it's going to require us to pay to go into a lot deeper analysis to figure out, you know, is this going to be a deal breaker or not? I'm going to talk about that later on in the video. 3-bedders in terms of exit score over here, best one, Ori's 3-bedder, okay, followed up by Chuan Park. Next would be Parktown, so rank number 3 for the 3-bedders. Okay, 3, and this we are looking at 3-bedder premium. Yeah, in terms of gap score, the best again would come in from EOK and Nava, right? Nava actually still have quite a number of units. So you notice Nava's score for 2-bedders, 3-bedders all are not too bad. Yeah, so something to take to consider about, right? I've done videos for Pine Tree Hill and also for Nava. Perhaps I could put that link in somewhere in the video, now this part. Yeah, best score, EOK, Nava. Other than that, right, we have this one, which is Alta, right? Again, Parktown will rank the lowest in terms of the exit score here, like I said, right? Not a surprise. 4-bedders here, best score for 4-bedders will be Chuan Park, followed by Ori, and actually for Parktown, our 4-bedder is going to rank 3rd out of all these launches. Not too bad, okay? But gap score again will die lah. Worst gap score among the lot, right? 5-bedders, due to the lack of data, we don't really have rankings for 5-bedders. Okay, so with that, right, I'm covered this pretty quickly because there's a lot of numbers. I don't want to bog everybody down, but if you're really interested to look at it for yourself, right, drop us a text and happy to send it over to you. So if you found this video useful and can appreciate the amount of work that we put into creating a video like that, the only thing we ask for in return is to hit the like and subscribe button, as you help out the channel a ton. Now let's get back into it. Now that's the quantitative analysis of Parktown Residences done. Now let's take a look at the qualitative analysis. So we are considering other factors such as the size of the development. Okay, so for example, we haven't really considered, right, especially if you are thinking about Alta, Parktown, maybe Lentor Central, or some of the remaining projects. How does the size of the development come into play in terms of your comparisons, right? While a lot of people are saying the transformation of the potential, shifting away of the Paya Lebar airbase, how does that play in, right? How then do you compare different transformations in different areas with one another? Then that's also another tricky thing, right? How does new plots in the area come into play in affecting your choice between the individual developments? How does the age of developments matter? Next up, rental yield, especially for those of you who are looking for an investment, looking to rent out over the long term, right? Because some of you may be thinking, for example, Parktown Residences, because it's on top of the MRT, you will potentially get higher rental yield. Now that's true to a certain extent, but it is at the end of the day quite far out. There's also no direct MRT link to the airport. Had there been a direct MRT link to the airport, then that's a home run, no-brainer. Now, how does this compare to perhaps, right, for example, if you're thinking a 2+ study potentially at Parktown versus say a 2-bed, 2-bath somewhere in another development slightly more central, for example? How would that rental yield, how do you compare those rental yields on an apple-to-apple basis, right? Next up, we take a look at, for example, for your own stay, right? So for your own stay, you kind of have to decide, right, matter of schools, MRT, amenities in that area. Now, one of the reasons a lot of our clients choose to work with us is our expertise when it comes to portfolio optimization, right? What's the kind of holding period to expect based on your entry price? What are the developments that you choose? Right? For example, over at the Ori, that happened a couple of weeks ago, due to the back queue number, have to buy slightly higher floor. So now then that's the discussion during launch day. Is it still worth it? Okay, I really do like the location. I want to enter into Ori. I could potentially live here for a slightly longer period of time. Sure, right? Then that's us having that discussion on the spot, right? Does it still make sense or not? What are your alternatives? That is a very important discussion to have on launch day, guidance to have on launch day, right? Portfolio sizing, is this the right kind of budget to be spending based on your income and based on your end goals? What's the opportunity cost? Should you not enter this if let's say we step away? There's the walkaway price that we always determine. What's the opportunity cost of waiting, right? Next up, exit timing, right? Based on the 3 to 5 years. Is this particular unit type, this particular project, which one has better potential to exit based on, you know, your portfolio? How do you want to build your portfolio, right? Some people are trying to exit within a 3-year period, 3 to 5 year period, then would say Parktown perform better or will Alta perform better, some of the balance units say at Chuan Park, which is better for your particular portfolio, for your kind of exit that you are looking for, right? Then of course, right, come launch day, when we finally zoom into the particular project, right, competitor analysis. How does this particular project compare with some of its neighbors? It's especially tricky for Parktown because a lot of the competitors are quite a fair bit further away, number one. Number two, quite a fair bit older as well. Now, how do you then balance this off? Because a lot of people will have that concern because the gap score that we have, right, how do we kind of reconcile that? I'm going to share a bit of insights to that later on in the video, right? Layout analysis, stack selection, again, something that is all the more important for Parktown as compared to Ori. Ori only, each layout only essentially got 2 stacks, nothing much in terms of stack selection, right? But for Parktown, so many different facings, and the developers are going to utilize all these different facings and load them accordingly. Now, what is a fair price for a better facing versus a not so good facing? At which kind of percentage should you swap to one another? Again, that's where we come in to help, right? Then we also have the PSF gap within the development. Okay, so previous video we talked about Ori, low floor to high floor, almost a
$300,000 to $400,000 difference. Okay, the one really not much that you can do. You are a victim of your luck in terms of when can you potentially buy. Now, but there's a lot more signs to a development that's a lot more low rise with a lot more facing. Okay, then this one you can catch a good PSF gap. Right, it's the loading a bit too much. I give you an example for my Park Esta, a personal example. Right, we decided to buy a slightly more premium facing that's away from the main road. We paid $100,000 more, but come the resale market, actually that gap narrowed. So what did that mean? What does that mean, right? It meant that the outward facing units actually had a higher ROI than our unit. Okay, so now how do we then piece all of this together to kind of figure out what's the game plan for you for launch day? If you find this very confusing, a little bit too much, right? Feel free to reach out to us. Happy to help. Else, you know, if you think this is sufficient to help yourself come to a decision, by all means, feel free to reach out to us. Happy to share that with you. Now, on to the last segment, the 3 things we like and don't quite like about Parktown Residences. And starting off with the 3 things we like, and on point number 1 is the exit score. Now, Parktown Residences have actually surprised me with how well it scored in terms of its exit score, as compared to some of our more well-located, more centrally located condos. So that is contributed by number 1, great profitability. And for the first time ever, actually, I've considered all the condos in a particular district. And with that, we have some of the older condos as well as some of the newer condos. And across the board, I've seen great profitability for all of them. Next up, we consider the supply. And despite, again, considering all the supply within District 18, the number of units for sale actually only comes up to a small percentage of the total supply. So in conclusion, what that means is that the supply and demand dynamics works very, very well in favor of potential buyers. Now to point number 2 on what I like about Parktown Residences, building on a little bit onto point number 1, the exit score, is the very, very strong upgraded demand. And I'm not sure whether you know, Tampines is the biggest HDB estate in Singapore. Let's take a look at the HDB annual report where they share some key statistics for all of us, okay? And we take a look over here of all the HDB towns, and you notice in terms of area, actually Hougang is the largest. But once you look at the total residential area, you can see Tampines over here being the largest out of all the HDB towns in Singapore. They've even consolidated how many dwelling, that means HDB units, okay? Again, you see over here, Tampines coming in at 82,000. If you factor in some of the newer HDBs that's going to come in, as well as also private properties, we're going to end up with 1,110,000 units. For comparisons, right, this is almost double the size of Ang Mo Kio. It's like Ang Mo Kio plus Bishan with some spare, okay? I mean, this is publicly available information. If you like, you can just go in and take a look, okay? They even have some of this diagrams over here to show you, right, what are some of the completed HDB properties and what are those that are building that is in green. So if you like upgraded demand, potential HDB MOP demand, you want to look at areas with a lot of green areas. So you notice this area over here that's closer to Bedok Reservoir, this is also considered Tampines. It's just that this area got no MRT. There's no Tampines South MRT, right? Tampines is one of the towns with the most number of MRTs, right? We have Tampines East, Tampines West, Tampines North, and the Tampines Central. I like to tell people that Tampines is a marketing masterclass from HDB, because based on the sheer size, they could very easily have kind of parceled out this particular area as a new town altogether, but they choose not to do so. They want to absorb everything within Tampines because the HDB has already pumped in all that effort to really, you know, sell Tampines as this very big, mature estate with so many amenities, and you don't want to have to kind of redo everything by naming a new town altogether. Just wrap everything up and call everything Tampines lah, right? So, right, that's besides the point, right? Main thing over here, what I like is that huge upgraded demand.
Number two is that because, right, if you followed the video, I've talked a little bit, I followed the channel, I talked a little bit about the lack of supply down the NEL, right, the northeast line, okay? If you come down the NEL, you notice that actually there's not that many condos near to the MRT. Number one, there's actually not that many condos launched since the batch in 2018, right? Those condos that I talked about earlier on in the video. What that has resulted in is actually the spillover of demand from the Sengkang Punggol area. Actually, I want to share with you guys this particular table of the locations of buyers that have bought Lentor. As you notice, actually there's a lot of buyers from District 19. That tells me that actually the District 19, all these red areas, right, all the upgrader from there, they don't really have a lot of options if they want to stick within this area, and they've kind of spilled over down to the left and to the right. Okay, so a little bit of a long shot, but I believe it's going to happen because I do have quite a number of upgraders from Sengkang Punggol. They're also considering Tampines, okay, because some of the Tampines folks, right, before they had Tampines North, a lot of them actually picked some of their new BTOs in Sengkang Punggol. Now they are looking to move back. Okay, so upgraded demand is, I think, something that's very, very assured if we pick somewhere like Tampines. And on to the third thing I like about Parktown Residences is its location in the OCR, and the reason why I said is because I am the firm belief that the OCR is going to go into a period of undersupply, and let me explain why again using data. So what we are looking at over here is the pipeline supply of private residential units based on year of completion, and I'm showing you something from the past, okay, from 2016 all the way to 2020. Right, what we want to pay attention to, right? So this is for the entire Singapore, right, split down into CCR, RCR, and OCR. And if you see the percentage, right, of the supply, of the total supply across the island, right, 9% in the CCR, 31% in the RCR, and 60% in the OCR. This kind of correlates nicely into sort of where everybody is living in. Like, again, if you take a look at the previous image that I sent based on where all the HDBs are located, that they are all in the OCR, right? So 60, 31, 9, I felt it was pretty fair split, right, to cater to potential HDB upgrader demand. Now let me show you that split today. Okay, so this is based off URA's. So this is based off URA's data from the third quarter 2024. Again, it's illustrating the same thing of all the TOPs from 2024 to 2028. Yep. And over here, I bring your attention to the right side. Okay, so similarly, CCR, RCR, OCR, and you see how this percentage have shifted significantly to only catering 41% of all future supply of private residential developments into the OCR. That seems to me like a little bit of a mismatch because again, still, right, most of the MOPs are going to happen in the OCR. Most of the population are going to still be staying in the OCR. Catering only 41% of all the future supply to the OCR tells me that helps me understand that essentially the OCR is going to go into a period of undersupply moving forward. But now moving on to the three things we don't quite like about Parktown Residences, and on point number one is the gap score. So regardless of how much the developer is going to launch it at, you're still going to be entering in at way higher of a PSF and also quantum compared to your surrounding condominiums. Now is that going to be a deal breaker for me? Not so much. Now let me help you reconcile that. Okay, first thing, why the scoring is as such is a kind of victim of data. There's no real not a lot of new condominiums in the District 18 area to kind of help pull that data point up, right? The average median has all been kind of pulled down because of all these slightly older condominiums around there. So I've tried to help you guys overcome that by sharing with you with the first data point that I shared earlier on in the video, right? Compare integrated developments, try to keep integrated development entry PSF to be within about 15% of other similar condominiums launched in the same period of time, right? You could borrow data points from Lentor, borrow data points from Norwood, okay? You ideally don't want to burst the entry prices of EOK, Trump Park, and whatnot, right? Because they are located in the ASEA. So as long as you keep yourself within this range, I think you're still going to be alright. Don't allow the data points within the area to affect you too much, because if you solely base on that, it's unlikely you'll be able to enter. On to point number 2 on what I don't quite like about Parktown Residences is the number of 2-bedders being built, right? There's going to be 50% of the units that will be 2-bedders. That's going to bring in a lot of investors, right? It's going to work okay for you if you're an investor yourself, but of course, if you follow the channel, I've always proposed that you'd rather be an investor in an owner-occupied area than to be an investor in an investor-occupied area. The reason why is because all investors have depreciating break even the minute their unit is rented out. The tenant starts paying their mortgage for them, start paying their interest and their principal, a little bit of their principal for them. They buy at 1 mil, they don't have to sell at 1 mil. Okay, so if everybody is all investors, but there's bound to be some time where, you know, another investor is looking to sell for a better opportunity. They may not be pricing their unit as high as what you want them to be. Okay, it's okay for you if you are also an investor, right? But it's not so okay for you if you're looking for an own stay, right? So be very, very careful if you're looking to buy a 2-bedder for your own stay over here in Parktown. You may want to consider some alternatives. Okay, for an investor, for people buying it, right, do pay attention and maybe be prepared to hold it out for a slightly longer term. I'm saying maybe 5 years or so. 3 years flip, maybe for the slightly larger units, okay. But all in all, right, if you consider the fact that there's so many 2-bedders there, and also the gap score being quite high, I just want to prep your mindset that if you want to enter, and I share this actually with my clients for all the developments, right, it's always good to enter being prepared to hold it for a slightly longer term. Okay, so whatever comes, it will feel like a bonus to you, as opposed to, you know, entering it, oh, I want to sell it, I have to sell it in the 3 years. It's just going to be paving the way for disappointment for yourself. And before I jump on to my final point, what I don't quite like about Parktown, I'm going to share with you a little bit of a bonus dislike point. Okay, and this is because I've received a lot of feedback and a lot of questions with regards to this. Okay, which is there's 2 ECs, right, Orel and Tenet, that's very, very close in proximity to Parktown, and they are easily 2/3 of the price, significantly cheaper. Will that put price pressure on Parktown's entry if you buy Parktown? In my personal opinion, not so much. And the reason why is this: if you take a look at the recent MOP over at 100 pumps, for example, right, and you can see how aggressive the owners there are in terms of how much they are asking for. So did 100 pumps TOP really put price pressure on Affinity or the condos around the area? Actually, no. As a matter of fact, how aggressive they were, I believe, is pushing prices up in and around the vicinity. So this one, right, maybe just put yourself in the shoes of an owner of Orel or Tenet. Okay, by the time they comes up, they will be pricing their units based on market prices. Okay, and also based on how much it will take for them to replace their particular unit. So would they sell cheap and underprice themselves? Natural human nature tells me that no, they're not going to do that. The next point is that they will not all come into the market at that point in time. Okay, so at MOP, yes, a good number of units will come up. If you're a Parktown owner, just try not to go and fight them at that point in time, right? Just see that, you know, potential MOP coming up, supply coming up, you either sell earlier, front run them, or you just hold out until that supply comes off. But at the end of the day, it's not all of them, 100% all of the units will come onto the market at one go. So if you ask me, will I be overly concerned about that? Probably not as much, right? Not as much as the first 2 points of concern. Now on to the third and final point of what we don't quite like about Parktown Residences. It's the potential FOMO that is setting into the market right now. So if you take a look at the launches all the way from the second half of last year to the recently concluded Ori, all of them, big or small, easily crossed 70% sold, all the way up to the ridiculous 99% for EOK. What that also means is that there's still a lot of buyers in the market that have yet to secure a unit. So if you approach the launch without a solid plan in mind, you may be compelled to take action and to buy quite simply because you have a good queue number. So I urge all of you to please do your homework and have a concrete plan in mind before you approach the launch. So with all that analysis done, we've only answered half of the equation. The other more important half of the equation is still unknown, which is the price, and unfortunately we only know that on launch day. So here's how I'll approach the project should I be looking to buy a unit myself. Number one, do your homework beforehand. We've done a huge chunk of that for you by listing down what are all the developments in the District 18 area. If you want to take a look at that, feel free to reach out to us. Happy to send it over to you. You may also want to go to the extent of arranging some of the viewings just to understand, why are they priced so cheap, right? Are they going to be a worthwhile competition for a development like Parktown in the future? So if you know that they may potentially form a very strong competition, then should you then potentially look at buying some of those units? Or if you know that, I don't think they are actually the same product, and then at least logically you can answer that, they are cheaper, but I don't think there will be a strong competition moving forward. And of course, if you're looking for own stay, you could also utilize all the research that we have done, picked out some of the well-performing resale developments, take a look at them. If they already tick all the boxes, why not, right? You don't have to subject yourself to the higher price of Parktown, the balloting, and also the potential rental for 4 years. And the second thing I'll do is to create a walkaway list. Create your alternative list. For example, if my queue number is no good, right? Queue number is good, great. You have done your homework, queue number is good, buy. What happens if your queue number is not good, which is a very common occurrence to a lot of us? Your queue number is no good. You want to have this alternate list so that you can jump onto that real quick, taking action before rest of the demand truly comes in. This alternate list is also good in the event that the price comes up to be a lot higher than you expect. Okay, so we're all going to have a walkaway price, right? But please don't text me and ask me for the walkaway. My particular walkaway price is because my walkaway price also depends on the individual clients. If you're looking for your own stay, that based on all your requirements, you have narrowed down to these few developments, I have to give you a slightly higher walkaway price. You also have that luxury for that higher walkaway price because you have potential to hold the unit for a lot longer. Now, if you have for investments, then of course your walkaway price can be a lot lower. But in order to juggle this walkaway price, it's important to have this alternate list, because the pitfall that a lot of people fall into is, number one, they have this arbitrary or this theoretical walkaway price, but when you walk away, there's no alternative for them to buy, and then you are left in this twilight zone that you walked away from the development where you had the chance to buy, but you don't buy it. In the end, nothing much to buy, and then you are left high and dry. Okay, I've seen and heard many of such cases happening before, right? So this again is homework that you should do beforehand. So let me give you an example of how this alternate / walkaway list works. So for example, your queue number gets called, you have a $2.5 million budget. What's left over there at Parktown is not your first choice, right? If your first choice, you already have bought it, we will have to come to the alternative list, right? So let's say, for example, it's not your first choice. This facing you a little bit iffy. Okay, come, let's take a look at our alternative list, the other alternatives for what we can potentially buy at this 2.5 million range, and you realize that all these other alternatives, right? Let's say Parktown, this one I can enter at the 50th percentile, right, of the price points. But these other ones, because there may be potential balance stock, of course we can wait for potential other launches also. Okay, but let's take a look at some of the alternatives in terms of existing stock. Some of them are already not so good facing. Either that or you buy high floor, you're buying at 70th percentile of other people's entry prices, and then it at least gives you a lot more clarity that maybe this is a better option. On the other hand, let's say 70th percentile already of the entry price, and you're buying it for investment. There's this other alternative that maybe costs a little bit more, but at least you enter at the 50th percentile, giving you a better entry percentile as opposed to the overall average price points. Then maybe then you want to move to your alternate, right? You always want to be able to decide, if you not to buy, what is the alternative to buy. You shouldn't be. You always should have a reason for waiting, and that's what I tell all my clients. So with that, if you have benefited from the video, you can use it for yourself. Great. If all the things we have mentioned sounds too complicated to you, feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to help. Else, if you can resonate with our systematic, data-driven approach to portfolio planning, portfolio purchases, and would like to work with us, again, feel free to reach out to us. I put my link somewhere over here, else you can click on the link down in the description below. Or if you would like to take a look at some of the research that we have done, similarly, drop us a text. If not, good luck for all of you who are going for the Parktown ballot. We'll see you again soon.